Chris, Leafs coach Craig Berube says he's hoping Auston Matthews is out a week and could maybe be back even sooner than that. What are you hearing about the status of the Leafs top-line center?
Well, certainly the expectation here is that this isn't anything long-term or serious, and that's obviously good news. We know Auston Matthews last year dealt with a variety of injury situations that really impacted his season, and this isn't that. So we'll start there. Whether or not he comes back next Tuesday, perhaps a game beyond that point, I think will depend on how he makes out as he sort of gets back up to speed. But, the good news for Toronto is it's not going to be too long. That being said, it's not really a good time to be losing your captain, a player who's as prolific as Auston Matthews and who soaks up as many tough minutes. So this is definitely a test of where the Leafs are at right here and now.
Berube did not say specifically how Matthews got hurt, but he did say it wasn't on that Nikita Zadorov hit that everyone was upset about. All right, so Matthews out. Anthony Stolarz also out tonight. He's considered day-to-day with that upper body injury sustained in Boston. So Dennis Hildeby gets the start. The question, though, moving forward, Chris, is what's the status of Joseph Woll? He played in the American Hockey League yesterday. When may we see him back in the Leafs crease?
Well, the expectation is it could be quite soon here. I think the Leafs have really taken a larger, scale picture view of everything for Joseph Woll. He was away from the team for a month, you recall, until October 24th when he returned in Buffalo. And since that period of time, the Leafs have tried to recreate the training camp that he missed, just in the terms of some of the individual practice he's had with the team's goaltending coaches and skill staff, obviously some of the practices he's had with the Leafs themselves, and then ultimately getting down and making 2 starts for the Toronto Marlies in the American Hockey League. So assuming everything goes okay with what is today a rest day for him following that game in Grand Rapids, I think you could see him recalled here for the weekend, and obviously they'll get him back up to speed. But the key thing to note is the Leafs aren't trying to rush Joseph Woll in to make one start. They want to bring him back when he's ready, be sure that he's in a position to succeed, because they're obviously going to need him and a healthy Stolarz to get things back on track this season.
Artur Akhtiamov has been called up from the Marlies. He will dress as the backup to Hildeby tonight. He's never played in the NHL. Okay, the Leafs have lost 3 straight games in regulation. They've never lost 4 straight under Craig Berube in regulation. If things don't turn around here quickly, could we see a big shakeup with this Leafs team, Chris?
I understand the question, but the view internally right now is the Leafs can't trade their way out of this problem, right? They can't just magically recreate the roster, as much as that can be fun to do in your mind in fantasy hockey. In reality, they have to work their way out of it as a team, and they're trying to remove some of the emotion, I think, from all these losses. Obviously there's a lot of heat piling up around this group, and when they look at things, they're second right now in 5-on-5 goals scored in the NHL. Too many goals going in against, and there's a variety of reasons for that, from the team's play, maybe some of the performance individually of defensemen who traditionally have been stout for this team and were part of a group that was pretty stingy last year, hasn't gone so well, and then obviously the goaltending. So, I think that really the focus is just on getting back to basics. They might need to win ugly now, down some of their best players, but I do think that there's a little bit of patience internally. Everyone understands how critical this time is. They don't want to dig a deeper hole than they already have. But, I don't see any major moves on the horizon, at least here in the short term.
Well, at least one player is exiting the organization here coming up this week. We're finally getting a resolution to the David Kämpf situation.
Yeah, and this one was more amicable than it might seem when you hear, a player being put on unconditional waivers for a contract termination. This is what it boiled down to. David Kämpf, of course, cleared waivers at the end of camp, was sent to the American Hockey League, played 4 games down there with the Marlies, and he didn't want to be there anymore. And the Leafs, had a variety of conversations with him, with his agent. I think we're pretty honest about his standing in the organization. And the message was, look, play and you could be recalled. I mean, we don't know where this is going, where the injuries will take us. But ultimately, Kämpf, wants to play for Czechia, his home country, at the Olympics, feels his best chance to do so, is finding his way back to the NHL. And so, he's effectively walking away from about $3.7 million remaining on his contract with the Leafs. Now he can go earn another contract and sign elsewhere. He'll be an unrestricted free agent as of Friday. But it is an amicable parting. He just wasn't willing to be patient, and that's obviously his right, and I think the Leafs do respect that.
Kind of ironic. The Leafs kind of could use a center right now. A defensively stout center like David Kämpf. Matthews out. Scott Laughton is out right now. Max Domi is already playing out of position in the middle. John Tavares will move up to 1C. And Steven Lorentz tonight going to be asked to move from the wing to the middle of the ice as the Leafs take on an LA Kings team that's already won 7 on the road this season.